Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our 6th episode of Revert Realities. My name is Nahela Morales, and I'm here with my co-host, and we have a very special guest, Sister Orenda Dadkhah and Sister Hadija Abdullah. How are you, ladies?
Alhamdulillah.
It's still early, right?
Well, no, over here in the East Coast, it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah. So today's topic is really something that hits home for many of us, and we hope that with this episode we're able to not only have a fruitful, beneficial conversation, but also we want to be able to dismantle some of the ideas and ideology that is happening that our Muslim community unfortunately quite doesn't understand. Wouldn't you agree, Sister Orenda?
I absolutely agree. Yeah, it's a topic that hits home with converts and reverts and first generation Muslims typically, but now we see it on a broad scale that we need to really address. Absolutely.
So we have with us a very dear friend and sister who I actually met at the White House. We were invited for iftar by President Barack Obama. And so I met Sister Hadija there. Do you remember Sister Hadija?
Of course. Of course I remember. It was a great time, alhamdulillah, meeting you and stuff. So yeah.
So Sister Hadija, mashallah, has a wonderful story of its own, and the work that she does, it's really imperative and it's so important. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm Khadija. Assalamu alaikum. I am from Connecticut. My parents are reverts. They reverted when I was 3, so you can say I was basically raised Muslim. And I moved to the DC area about a few years ago. I finished college and I started Rahma in college. We focus on HIV and AIDS education in faith communities. Our first goal was the Muslim community, but we kind of branched out to other faith communities. And we've done workshops, we've done testing on site, we raised awareness, we work with Muslims who are positive. And recently we got into working with FGM, which is female genital mutilation. We had to work with GW here in DC for 3 years and created a toolkit for healthcare providers to provide good care to survivors that are culturally competent. We had people who would go to healthcare providers and feel like they didn't know what they were doing. They felt like they would be stared at in a certain way and they couldn't get care they need and had cultural barriers. So our goal was to create a toolkit, and we spoke to survivors and providers and created that toolkit. You can find it at fgm.toolkit.gw, or Google it, you'll find it as well. And also, that's one of the things that I do right now. I'm down here in Nova area during the nice 100-degree weather. It's pretty warm. But yeah, that's about me.
Mashallah, mashallah. And so something so interesting about you is that even though you were born into the faith, you actually looked into it for yourself to practice it, correct? So you would consider yourself perhaps a revert?
I feel like that every person should decide their path in Islam. I was raised Muslim, yes, but when I got to be about college age, I started exploring to make sure that I wanted to be Muslim for me and not because I was raised this way. So I attended a couple of churches, I went to a synagogue, I did some studying, but I never felt that light in my heart that I felt when I was practicing Islam. So I decided for myself, I want to be Muslim. And I took my own Shahada. And I feel like it's important, even as if you're born a Muslim, that you should take your own Shahada because you want to decide this for yourself. So when I did that, I felt more, I felt like I was doing this for me. I felt more involved, more engaged. And, I felt like this is what I want to do in my path. And I mean, I'm not the perfect Muslim, I'm far from it, but I'm constantly studying and constantly learning. And I'm finding my place within our beautiful religion, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I don't believe there's such thing as perfection other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Definitely.
And so alhamdulillah that we are all on this journey, on this path, and it is a journey, right? It's not a marathon and it's personal. And so that's one of the things that we need to always keep in mind when it comes to Islam, that we may not all be on the same page per se in terms of where we're at practicing, but we hold the same value, right?
Definitely.
Which is believing in one God, and obviously the 5 pillars and 6 articles of faith that follow with it. And so, Sister Orenda, do you have any introduction? Do you want to say anything? We have a nice audience going on, mashallah.
I know. Thank you all for tuning in, especially with the current situation in the world. It's a very precarious time right now. But yeah, just as Sister Khadija said, I think it's very important to understand that no matter what level we're at in our faith, whether we're new, whether we've been Muslim all our life, we're students for life. We are students for life. And so I think that's where this episode comes into play. It starts within. And so anything that's happening in our current situation in the world, in our family, in our community, we need to realize that all of the change starts within us first. And so that's what we're going to discuss today.
Absolutely. And I guess I'll get us started to the actual conversation. We were scheduled to have Chaplain Garrett Bryan, and maybe he'll jump in. So we'll start the conversation about this very important topic. And let me start with myself, because I think it's very important to kind of put the scenario and put the picture out there. What and I'll just go straight into it, what racism looks like, right? I am Mexican. I was born in Mexico City. I was raised in California. And I actually was raised in Southern California. So there's, I went to college in downtown LA. I worked in downtown LA, where there's an extremely high population of the homeless. They have a whole city called Skid Row in LA. And so growing up, it was embedded, and this is the only way I can even say it. It was embedded in me as a child. What was better? Who was better than the other? And I got to think. I mean, I was having this discussion yesterday with my son. I can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for Islam, because that blindfold was completely ripped off, and to understand our equality in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so important in this day and age, right? And so growing up, I was sat down by my grandfather, and he literally told, it was predominantly cousins, male cousins, so it was only a few of us, female cousins, but we were told from a very young age that we can marry anyone except, and he wasn't very nice about it, except a Black person, right? And so automatically that I had that fear instilled in me, and it was, I didn't understand where it came from, but I was telling Andrew yesterday, anytime I was going through, or I was at a stoplight in downtown LA, I would automatically reach to lock my door, right? This fear that was instilled. And so it's not until later that I started beginning to understand how dangerous that was for my own soul. And so I remember that once I finished college and I started working in downtown, I actually hired a homeless gentleman that would always be outside the door where I worked asking for money to walk me to my car, especially during daylight savings when it got dark early. And so we became friends, and he would just basically walk me to my car, because it was a dangerous zone. I mean, I didn't park in next to the building because it was very expensive. So I had to walk several blocks, city blocks. So we became friends, and I remember one day, it was Friday. I would pay him Friday since I got paid Friday. And I remember one day the whole office left at the same time. And there is Mr. John, and he receives me with open arms when we open the door. he's like, hey, pretty lady. And there's my boss, my coworkers, and, everybody said, you know him? And I said, yeah, I know him. And so conversation didn't spark then. I took off with him. He took me to my car. But the next Monday, when I came back to work, everybody wanted to know, why was I associating myself with the homeless African-American individual? And so I think that was my first real taste to see racism right in front of my eyes, besides my family, outside of my family, in the workplace. And I worked predominantly with Iranians and Filipinos at the time. And so different walks of life, different parts of the world. I'm from Mexico and so on and so forth. So to see it at such a young age, from, growing up, to see it in my early 20s, moving forward all the way till today, and understand how Allah created us. And when we start this racism in our hearts, and it's really ignorance, right? When we talk about racism, it's really ignorance, because you're talking about Allah's creation, and Allah makes no mistakes. Therefore, we are all equal in the eyes of Allah, except, right, the ones that are God conscious, in piety, that do good deeds. And that's what the hadith and the ayahs tell us over and over again. So I've experienced perhaps racism in so many other forms, and we see racism in Mexico, but in a different form as well. We see it in classism, and I think I've heard this before from other friends in third world countries. It's more of a classism. In Mexico, you can be dark, you can be light complexion, it doesn't matter. If you have money, you're upper class and you are treated well, and there's no racism. But if you don't, then you fall on a different bracket and you're treated completely different, right? So, and that's pretty interesting. And I was talking to Brother Garrett about that this week, and he said how interesting that was. And a lot of people don't understand that, slaves were taken all over the world, and here in the New Americas, right? So we have a town in Mexico, actually not a town, a whole state, where they're predominantly residing. They're spread out, but the state of Veracruz in Mexico, which is southeast, kind of north from Cancun, in the peninsula, that's where there's fishermen, and there's a huge community. And so I'm still, I hope that I can visit there one day, inshallah. I remember we were going for a Dawah trip, and I wasn't able to make it, but I know that a lot of the Mexican community has gone to visit. And there are a few brothers and sisters that have converted in this area, in this region. The other thing I want to mention just about Mexico, just to get an idea of what it's like in different parts of the world. In Mexico, when you see an African American or when you see an African person, it's different, right? It's different than you. So obviously they're treated also like foreigners. They're not looked down upon, because a lot of people obviously don't. Some may not even know of this community in Veracruz, and so when they see someone that looks different to them, it's appealing. And my Mexican people always want to know, like, where are you from? What brings you to Mexico? Have you tried our food? And so it's a different demeanor than what I actually grew up in my household. And so that's where I want to start, that everything starts in the home. And so we need to check ourselves first and foremost when it comes to what type of racism are we talking about? Is it the type that is, blunt, or is it the type that you're like, oh, mashallah, you just took shahada, alhamdulillah, you're pious, you're wonderful, but then that same brother or sister comes and is interested for your son or daughter, and you're like, you're wonderful, but yeah, things change, and we have seen it. And I want Sister Hadija to kind of jump in there, because I know she has a couple stories to share with us. inshallah. But I think that's very, very important. And it's so important for us to educate ourselves, our family. And, you know, somebody told me earlier this week, it's not up to you to educate others about racism. Well, I'm sorry, but if I can, I will, you know, because I think it's a dangerous zone. And I believe in the hadith that says, what I want for myself, I want for you. So I would hate for you to see any of Jahannam because of this ill in the heart. And again, that's an illness, right? That is curable. So Sister Hadija, the floor is all yours.
I would say that this topic is very close to me, especially during these times where every time you turn on the news or the media, you see someone looking like me has been killed, brutally murdered by those who are supposed to protect us or by people who have privilege. And it's good to see that there are global protests happening across the world. It shows that we're so fed up, we're so done. And hopefully, we'll see, but hopefully there will be change. This keeps happening over and over and over again. And we have these protests and people are, you know, outraged, and then it calms down and people go back to their regularly scheduled privileged lives. And we're still Black, we're still facing discrimination, we're still facing these issues. I was raised and I was told that we are all one in the Muslim Ummah. And I was raised in a predominantly Black Muslim community where I'm from. So it wasn't until I was in college that I started to see the racism within my own community. When I was in college, I had a really good friend. She's from Pakistan. I remember the first day of school, I was, you know, new student on campus, all these people surrounding me. And I went to the financial aid office to do something with my finances for school. And I saw her in line. She had this beautiful pink hijab on. She had this bright smile. I was like, oh, a friend, you know. So we connected and we became really good friends. You know, I even went to her house a few times and met her family. They were very, very nice. But, you know, one day her mom had referred to me in a word that I didn't understand what it meant. And my friend told me that it was a derogatory term for a Black person. And I was very shocked. I was confused. I was like, why would she call me that? You know, I thought that, you know, she was so nice to me. She was very hospitable. And I just like, why would she call me that? And it really, really hurt me. And it was like one of my first bouts with this type of behavior from our community at that time. And I didn't go back to her house ever again. I was always very cordial with her family afterwards and things like that. But I never will forget that for sure. And then when I was, I want to say a senior in college, I was also the president of the MSA. And there was another brother in there. He was also South Asian. And, you know, he took a liking to me. And it was like, you know, he wanted to like halal date. And I was like, but anyway, started talking more about, you know, just different things in regards to like marriage. And he told me, oh, you know, it never could happen because his parents wouldn't approve because I'm Black. And I was just like, what is going on? I was like not understanding why me being Black has anything to do. We're all Muslim. It shouldn't matter, you know, what color we are or where we're from. We believe in Allah. We believe in the same religion. We love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why does it matter what color we are? You know, and I just realized, not just South Asians, it's like, you know, there's all the different people in our community that have these feelings. And I'm not saying all people are this way, definitely not, but a lot of people are, especially our elders. When I moved down here to Virginia, I came from a very small community that's African-American to a huge community, very, very diverse. It was beautiful. I loved it. Oh my God, all these Muslims, I was so like, I just love seeing it from all different countries, different backgrounds. It was a beautiful, beautiful sight. But then I walked to this huge masjid, and like usually when someone comes to my masjid, when they're new, we like, oh, hey, welcome to our masjid. You know, we don't know your face. Like, welcome, good to see you, guys, to meet you. And I went to this big masjid, and you know, everyone's doing their own thing, and you know, there was no like salam alaikum, and not like how most people like this, like, it's like, oh, greet me when I come in, like, oh, you know, just welcome me like that. But it'd be nice to just give salams to someone. And I realized within this masjid, a lot of different cliques and things like that. And I experienced some blatantly open and not so open racism from different people in the masjid. And, you know, my first year here, it was very, very hard for me. I one day, like, I just had enough of just not like, I'm a very outgoing, extroverted person. So I like thrive off of human interaction, and not being able to connect with people, or people like looking at me and turning away, it really was very hurtful. And I remember those years ago, and I had came home one day, I was just crying in my room. I was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm used to just doing things and being around people, and the people here are very welcoming. And she took it into her own hands. She actually called the master, trying to see if anything going on for like new people in the area, things like that. And, I decided to just go ahead and volunteer. And I became really part of some really strong groups out here in the DMV, like El Maghrib and Islamic Relief. And I really met some amazing people. And even to this day, we're really great friends. And I really enjoyed that experience. Also during that time, I met another person, also of Asian background. And the same thing, he told me, he needs someone from his culture. And it just really, and even within those cultures too, sometimes they are even to each other. Like if you're darker than someone else in the same culture, you're not, you're turned away, you're not from the same village. Like I learned all these different things. And it just really, really made me sad. And I feel like, but my generation and the next generation, I feel like we can definitely make a change. Like my friends, like they reach out to me like, I'm just so sorry what's happening in the community. So it's great that you're sorry. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to talk to your elders about it? Are you going to address racism? Are you going to talk to your kids? Are you going to raise your kids to be open-minded? Like, what are you going to do about it? I don't need for people to tell me they're sorry. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I just want you to have conversations. I want you to, it's sometimes very hard to talk to your elders because of the respect you want to give them. But at the end of the day, racism is very disrespectful in every single way. So there's a way to address or talk to your elders in a respectful way. They might not want to listen. People are ingrained, in the way they think, which is, I've seen that time and time again too, even my own community in different topics, different things like that. But try to have conversations, marry who you want to marry. It's okay. Islam is for everyone. It doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from. And I think it's very, very important to have these conversations. Even with personal friends, I go to their houses and I come in, like even one of my friends told me the other day that her mother told her that, she wants her daughter to look lighter than her because it is beautiful to be lighter and keep her out of the sun. And they're like, not part of my background, but different background. I'm just like, wow, it's just like, it's just really hard to navigate. And I did this post about this the other day, and a lot of people like that look like me said they had the same exact experiences. And not just here in America, but going overseas. And I've had these experiences a lot with people of different backgrounds, not just South Asian, like I said before. I had it with Arabs, I had it with different backgrounds. And I love my people. I love Islam, I love the Muslims, but I do not love this aspect of it. And I think it's very, very important that we address that and that we work hard towards that. And it's not my place to address it. I don't have to do it. I shouldn't have to address this. It should be you addressing your own racism, your own issues, and educating yourselves. There's so many books out there, so many people that you could address, become friends with a Black person, talk to them, ask us, don't speak for us, ask us. We're not scary Black people that people portray on us sometimes in the media, or that we're lazy, or that we're trying to use people. Like, no, this, like, have you met Black people? We're some of the most hardworking people you've ever met. And we're some of the most passionate people as well. And we love hard, and we love our community, we love our culture. We're never gonna be sorry for being Black. I'm never gonna be sorry for being Black. I love my dark skin, everything about my wide nose, everything. I love all of it. And, people try to downplay that all the time, saying, oh, the darker you are, you're uglier. If you have a big nose, you're ugly. No, I'm not, I'm beautiful. Thank you very much. And I think that especially Black children growing up in this society, need to have that same empowerment and same love for our community. We are all beautiful, no matter, we have such beautiful, diverse ranges of skin tones and cultures, and we all can just come together. That'd be a beautiful thing. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm not, because it's been going on for a very, very long time. Before I was even born, my parents, they were part of the civil rights movement. They were marching in the streets, fighting for civil rights. They knew around, and Martin Luther King was around, Malcolm X was around, so it's just like this continues happening over and over and over again. And the question is, when is it going to stop? Is it ever going to stop? Like I said in the beginning, it's so good to see people that even are here in the US and UK and other places, upset about happening to George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. It's so much going on. And like, just seeing my generation and people that, millennials and Generation X's and all these different people coming together, even kids growing up, and people bring their kids to these protests, it's beautiful to see that. But like I said, once this dies down, I want to see continue having that outrage, continue having these conversations, not just stopping once it's not popular anymore to be outraged. I want you to continue going forward and having these convos. Because remember, after this is done, I'm still Black. I'm still going to be Black, and it's still going to be racism happening in this world. So it needs to be addressed. And it starts with all of us, not just me, but everyone, people that are watching this, especially people who are non-Black. I feel, it's just every day is some type of racism, from us applying to jobs, from going to different companies. Like, for example, George Floyd, a Black man. And I know this can be controversial, but the owner of the store is Muslim, from what I've been reading about. And they've been in that community for many, 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 many years. And, people are saying, if you're part of the community and you say you're part of this community, you would do other things to call. I mean, they didn't say he called, but someone at his company calling over a $20 bill. Like, there's so much more. If you watch the news, we are being killed just for being Black. If a cop is being called for some reason, it should be for a very, very, very strong, compelling reason. And in the video, I couldn't watch the video. Every time I came on timeline, I just went past it. My mental health is very, very important. And I cannot watch these videos. I watched the one of Ahmaud Arbery. I shouldn't have done that. It's just too much. It's too much. And speaking for me, I'm tired. I just want to be able to live peacefully, not be worrying about me going outside, or my nephew going outside who's Black, or my father or my brothers going outside who's Black, and not coming back home, or laying in my bed peacefully, and someone coming into my house shouldn't be laying in my bed, Breonna Taylor. Like, come on, there's like these things need to stop, and we need to step up to the plate.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I think something else as you were speaking, something that people need to understand that I've been listening to. Last night I was listening to a webinar, with a lot of scholars, and a lot of them were speaking up about it, right? But can you take us to, I understand, and I know Sister Orenda understands, but can you tell us when somebody says, we're hashtagging, we're screaming, we're at protests, we're saying Black Lives Matter, and then somebody comes and tells you all lives matter. What does that mean? Because I get it, and it enrages me, because I understand that people don't understand. When they're looking at the loitering and the rebelliousness, because it's not rioting, we gotta also change our verbiage, right? What is that? Can you enlighten us with that, the audience?
I think a lot of folks don't understand what all lives matter and Black lives matter mean. I saw this great example yesterday on social media where someone said, imagine you go into a neighborhood and it's a bunch of houses on the neighborhood, but one house is on fire. Yes, all houses matter, but that one house needs help. It needs to be extinguished. The fire is on fire. So yes, all your houses matter, but that one house right now matters the most. You need to take care of that fire. So Black lives, yes, I mean, in thought, all lives should matter, right? But in reality, you've seen us being killed every day. You've seen us, all these violent things happen to us. So do our lives really matter? All lives won't matter until Black lives matter too. And that's the most important thing people have to remember. Our lives, is very clear that our lives are not mattering. And, this is it's a hard topic to talk about, but it's a very important topic to talk about. And people need to, before they say all lives matter, I need to do some research, understand what that means. Because it's very, very offensive. And until Black lives stop being brutally murdered, all lives do not matter, because our lives are not mattering. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say about that. I mean, again, I shouldn't have to explain things to people. They should be willing to go out and educate themselves. And that's the bottom line. You know, we're more than a hashtag. We're more than a protest. We're so much more than that. And we, you know, and if we really are all one in Islam, then we need to act like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we all have to realize too that we just, with the advent of social media and technology, we're just now seeing what's been happening forever. It's not new, right? This isn't a new thing that we're seeing on the videos of these arrests or the unjust violence against the Black people in general. And doesn't mean it doesn't happen to other ethnicities or races, right? But we see it happening on a mass scale. And it has been happening throughout history. We just are seeing it now in front of our eyes because of social media and the prevalence of everybody in the world having a camera. So do you think that's accurate, Sister Khadija?
And I would say another thing is when Black people are posting and sharing their personal reflections, especially right now, and then you come on and say, well, it happens to our race too. Okay, but now that's considered a form of gaslighting, or you don't respond with hate or things like that. We're centering our stories. This is our time right now. We've been suffering for centuries right here in the USA. So we're sharing with you our experiences and things. Don't try to silence us. That's not how it should work. We've been silenced for far too long. You need to listen to us. Open your ears and listen and start trying to make it about you, because it's not about you right now. We know it can happen. People are, every race might have something going on. But right now, Black lives, are at a really disadvantage. You know, like I said, we are going through so much. We're being brutally murdered, and we support you guys. Like when things was happening with the no travel ban, we were in airports, you know, by your side, protesting for that. When there's things happen, the Arab uprising, things are happening with Kashmir, things like that. We were out there too, by your side, you know, trying to protest and raise awareness. And now it's our time. You know, it's our time. And like, we want the same support from you too. Like, don't just pick and choose, you know, which one works. If people's lives are at stake, you need to be there too, making sure that you're trying to find a way to make sure we're safe, you know, and you gotta stop telling your kids and your family members that, you know, Black people are the lowest people on the totem pole, because we're not. We have great, rich cultural history. You know, we've done so much in advancement in this world. We were there at the beginning of Islam. Like we have great places within when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was alive. Like, you know, and you quote Martin Luther King on your social media, Malcolm X, when you just go home and be racist. Like, don't use us to look good. That's not, you need to do more than that. You need to address your racism and address your privilege. That's what you need to do. So.
Thank you for that. Yeah, go ahead, Orenda.
Well, I was just listening to a lecture by Sheikh Abdul Adoro yesterday, and had some statistics that were a little bit alarming to me that I didn't realize. I knew it was an issue because as a convert myself, I know I've experienced, but this isn't about us right now, but to be able to sympathize and to understand the feelings to a very tiny degree of what the Black community is going through. And he had mentioned that 60% of American Muslims report some level of discrimination from the general public. So as Muslims, we all have that, you know, with any issues that happen in the world, the Muslims are the bad people. But when we feel this, but when news reports come out that, you know, the Muslim commits an act, we get that heat, right? Black Muslims represent 1/3 of American Muslims. And they don't only get that discrimination from the general public, but they also get it from their fellow Muslims. And that is what we want to say. That's the point of this episode, is it comes from within. Our masjid should be a safe place for our Black American Muslims and our Black Muslim community. And so that is, I think, the biggest point that we wanted to make today. And Mufti Mink made a profound statement also that we need to reflect on. If you have a problem with someone's skin color, you have a problem with the Creator, with Allah. Allah created all of us. And so we should not have any biases one way or the other. And that's just the point, you know, we're hearing from all these stories that we see. And so we have to educate ourselves. And the only way we can do that is have conversations like this, open conversations. What do you think, Sister Nahela?
You know, I am also angry, and I've been at protests since this all started, and I've been getting bullied on my own social media because I've been very vocal about how I feel, and I'm outraged, and I completely understand what Sister Hadija is saying. It's your time right now, so I want to employ like the community. And you just need to stop. And if you don't know, mute yourself. You don't need to go and post and ignorantly go and say something. It's better that you say nothing and go and educate yourself, like Sister Hadija was saying. So I came across this, and I have to read it. You said something about the house. Now you made that analogy. Now this is another one here that says, imagine your child dying, and you are giving an analogy explaining what your own child meant to you and how special your child was. And then somebody grabs the mic and says, actually, all children are special. That's exactly what we're doing when we say all lives matter, right? That's like, we need to stop, completely just stop. And going back to the whole education aspect of it, I specifically came encounter, and I'm only going to mention it because I think it's important. Somebody, again, send me back to my country, wherever that's supposed to be. Just yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? Literally. Or if I want to go up north to Canada. But basically that my rage and my hatefulness, because I was quoting a couple activists on this, on the notion of expression in terms of what this really entitles. It's like you said, Sister Hadija, it's not about us. It has nothing to do about us. It's right now, it's the African American, period. Like there's no even but there's no but right now. So this individual actually, doesn't understand the content. I understand she only came here maybe 5 years ago. I'm an immigrant, but I came here when I was 4, and I picked up a book. I've watched documentaries. I continue to educate myself. I'm not well-rounded. I'm getting there, I'm getting there, and I don't stop. And I think that's where we have a problem, that you learn, like you were saying, a quote or two, and a quote or two, and then you feel like that's it. You're desensitized, and that you're good to go, and there's no racism. Racism is in so many forms. The way you speak, the way you act. Who are you purchasing from? Are you giving your business to the African American? Are you giving your business? All of that is so important when it comes to how we're acting in this moment. And it's not about us. So this individual was basically telling me, I kind of rerouted her to get some education in the most polite way. I got cursed at, and I finally, by the end of the night, before I just lost, like you said, we got to take care of ourselves. And my last post last night was, self-care is deleting and blocking people if you have to. And that's exactly what I did. I had to block her because first of all, my energy is not supposed to be gearing towards that way. And if you don't get it, then get out of my way, because then we need to get people educated so they can actually get it, right? To understand what's really happening. And again, something just really, really quickly that what is happening, I think people don't understand the following terms, like systematic racism. People don't understand what's really happening within our communities. People are not understanding social economics. Like, so, okay, you need to go and pick up a book. And I think the best documentary that is out there, I think it's 1 hour and 41 minutes. Yasser Qadi last night mentioned it in his talk. And he also alluded of how he thought he knew, but this documentary opened his eyes. For the last 2 weeks or a week and a half, I've been encouraging people to go watch 13th, right? And so if anything you do today or this weekend is sit your family and watch this documentary to understand just the crisp, just a little bit of what of the root cause of what is happening today. And so I know we started 5 minutes late, so we might go over 5 minutes, inshallah. And Sister Orenda, do we have any conversations going on online?
Before we jump there, I just want to highlight and uplift a couple of Black Muslim focused organizations that are doing work in the Black community. And we're going to turn to learn about racism and how to address that in your community. So there's one, Muslim ARC. I'm pretty sure many of you probably heard of this organization. And I'll tell you all who are watching the URL for that, Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative. So Muslim ARC, muslimarc.org. They can do workshops, they do sessions, they can come to your community if they have people there and talk about racism and how, you know, you can be part of addressing that issue. It's also Muslim Wellness Foundation and the Black Muslim Psychology Conference. You should definitely go to those conferences. They have it every year. And you learn about, we hear from us, Black people, sharing our experiences, sharing, you know, come to us, don't be afraid, come to these conferences and learn. You have these big ones like ICNA and ISNA, this is great, but come to the Black Muslim ones as well. We actually have our own conferences because we can't find our space in these big ones. Let me say that again, it's hard for us to find our space in these big ones. So we have our own. You need to come to ours, you need to learn. And so we feel welcome in these big ones, we're gonna continue having our own conferences. And also one last thing I wanted to say is that back to the All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, understanding that one of my good friends, her 11-year-old daughter, she broke this down to her classmates. This is what she said. She said, in order for all lives to matter, Black lives need to be recognized as lives that matter. If you have 5 children and one has a cut, are you gonna give them all a bandage? No. You're gonna give your kid that's cutting, that's bleeding the one right now, because that one is important. They're the one that needs this bandage. It's the same thing for Black lives. We aren't seen as all lives matter right now. And that came from a child. Yeah. So a child can understand it, you can understand it, period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point of what, you know, your question of, I don't need your sympathy, but what are you going to do, especially once this, you know, this outrage right now is not so prevalent. And we have one of our viewers here that's kind of saying the same thing, you know, is Embrace specifically, or ICNA, going to step up and continue the fight for equality and keep this momentum once it dies down? And I think that's important to bring up. That's definitely something we've been keeping as a conversation of what we can do. And I think as born Muslims in the US, or if you're born in the US to, you know, Muslim parents, whether they're immigrants or whether they're converts or reverts, and us reverts or converts, that we are the ones who can definitely work to instill this change, because this is our platform, this is our language, this is our culture, right? And so I think just to let everyone know, I think that is our intent, to see what we can do to continue this momentum afterwards, because it is an issue. We want to nip it in the bud. We want to get rid of it as best as we can. It will take time, and that's going to take consistent effort. So thank you for your input today, Sister Khadija. I think it's really important, like you said, to listen to the people that these issues are happening to. We can't help if we don't listen. And if we don't listen, we don't know what we can do. But we do have some things we can, you know, actions we can take to work towards, you know, making racism not so prevalent in our Muslim communities. And part of that is even, you know, as converts, we have to be confident in who we are. We need to be able to speak up. And that's, I think, one of the major issues, communication, right? We need to acknowledge each other and say salam to each other. That's even an issue, you know, yeah. Not being, you know, there's times I walk by people and I'm so excited to say salam, they don't even make eye contact. So this is a very important, it's manners, right? Just good manners. We don't want to generalize any group, any of us. So we have to be careful in our own language, in how we're speaking, our verbiage, no racial slurs. We need to step outside our comfort zone and be the one in the masjid or events to go up and say salam to others and not wait for that. So we can't expect change if we're not the ones willing to make that change, right? We can arrange multicultural events, or as Sister Khadijah shared with us, to go to these events that they hold and listen to what they're saying and see what can we do? What can we do to be supportive? And stand with each other in times of grief and sickness. And to do that, we need to be humble, right? We need to be humble and follow our faith and the Sunnah and Quran and the example of our Prophet, peace be upon him, in our behaviors and our manners.
So just a few action items. I don't know if there, well, let me give some action items first. So first and foremost, educate ourselves. Sister Khadijah, we have a whole, we're going to be posting all of this that I'm saying. We have different flyers. So we are going to continue the conversation even after this dies down, inshallah. And there's so many, there's so many issues within this that we are going to, inshallah, touch on. So, you know, call out racism when you see it, even if it's in your home, you know, at your school, at your workplace, and anywhere else. Call it out, you know, and make sure that you put an end to it. Support, again, Black-owned businesses. Vote, you know, the census. It's so important. We kind of don't think about it, or kind of say, oh, because we have the worst of two and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, even within your local voting, your local city, it's so important. So educate yourself. It's your job to learn, right? Like Sister Khadijah said, it's not up to them to educate us. We got to learn. We got to pick up and learn. Be an advocate for mental healthness. You know, when it comes to social media, if you see something, say something. Don't just stay quiet, but not out of ignorance. Make sure that you know, have full knowledge of what you're saying, to not be part of the problem, but instead being part of the solution. And if you don't have anything to say, then it's best, as our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to stay quiet, right? And then come back, you know, yes, come back and educate it, and make sure that you say something. There's a lot of petitions out there that can be signed. You know, we need to put our money where we're talking, so make sure that we're, aside from businesses, there are many organizations. Sister Khadijah mentioned a few. In these flyers that we're going to be posting up, there's a list of different organizations that you could look into, predominantly, and that support the African American community. Now, as far as ICNA has ICNA Council for Social Justice. So we do have a department or a sister organization, and so we are working as well. And we hope that we get to be able to do and allocate, you know, funds and everything that is needed when it comes to, you know, whether it's educating, putting up billboards, and, you know, putting up the correct verbiage and up on the website, and so on and so forth. So there are a few petitions out there, one being justice for George Floyd. There's one for Breonna Taylor. There's a number. So all of these, and if you go to change.org, you'll see all of these petitions out there as well. There's a number of books that you want to read. Maya Angelou has a great one, and so does, just slipped my mind right now, that I was reading. I'll come back to that. There's a few also podcasts that you want to listen and engage and educate yourself and share all of this with. And again, you want to places to donate, right? So we have the George Floyd Memorial Fund, we have the Minnesota Freedom Act Fund, we have the Black Lives Matter, Justice for Breonna. So these are all places, and we'll put all of this for you guys to put your money where you need to. So inshallah, how is our engagement on social media? I see there's a lot. Do you want to mention?
Yeah, we have, Sister Shazia had mentioned, you know, she said, we will be your voice, inshallah. She says, our African American brothers and sisters have been suffering for 300 years. We are with you and feel your pain. So I think maybe we can't really feel the pain, but we can definitely be there to support, because I think we realize we don't go through it ourselves. We do not feel that pain exactly, right? But we can definitely be there and say, what can I do for you? What do you need? How can we support you? And so we do have a lot of people in the community willing to support. And so what we need to do is all band together and get out these references, get out the links like that you shared, Sister Khadijah, for people to be aware of it. A lot of times people are willing to help, but they don't know what to do. And so that's where us as a community needs to make sure we provide that information. And
yeah. The other thing I want to mention, which I think it's imperative and very important, to make sure that before you share anything, you know that is a reliable source. Don't just be putting things out there, please, because you do more damage by doing that. And as it is, that's exactly what they want. They want to divide us. So you sharing things and feeding yourself that, you know, if you don't know the source, or if you're just kind of copy and pasting, don't share anything, you know, just don't do it, because it's very damaging. The other thing is, make sure that we check up on each other. We check up on each other, acquaintances, families, friends, colleagues. You know, you have African-American friends, reach out to them. I reached out to someone this week, and I mean, I wanted to do more, but all she said is make dua. My mind is not well. My mental status is not well right now, and I don't want to talk. And you got to respect. That's it. She doesn't want to talk. You respect. Don't cross boundaries. That's another very important thing. You know, when your advice is not asked for, do not give it. Please don't give it, because I've seen it way too many times, and we need to just completely stop. Come to a pause. And it's not, like Sister Khadijah said, it's not about us. No, we are not going to understand you. No, we're not going to feel that pain. We don't know. So therefore, we can't even say we try, or we kind of, no, we don't, period. So I think it's important for us to come to a stand and just be a solid, and I mean solid, ally. You know, if you have the resource, go to a protest. You don't want to protest, bring water, bring whatever you are able to with your resources. I mean, there were some sisters that didn't have a babysitter, you know, and she was very open. I want to go to the protest, but I don't have a babysitter. Can somebody babysit? So if you have, if you're able to help in any way, shape, or form, you're not able to be on the front line, step away, but come and help. Every single one of us can actually help. There's not one single soul out there that cannot help. Even if it's just $1, if it's not financially, it's word of mouth, it's shutting it down, it's combating this racism within ourselves first, checking ourselves. I think before you go to bed tonight, make sure that you have a conversation. The conversations, like Sister Khadijah said, speak to your children. You know, I always tell Andrew, I don't care who you marry. She can be, you know, black, white, yellow, green, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. As long as she's Muslim, that's all that matters to me, you know? And we need to make sure that we're having these conversations with our children. Yesterday, he made a post that really, you know, as a parent, if anything you want is to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes your parents made with you, right? And so for him to write the post he did yesterday, it was like, alhamdulillah, may Allah accept it, and may Allah continue to, I'm a single parent, so I'm all solo. And so to be able to do this solo, I kind of have to pat myself on the back, but he said something, you know, and let me just read it, because it was just very touching to me. And I feel that when we see our children expressing themselves, allowing them to express themselves all as well, don't shut them down. I've seen parents say, you don't know anything about it, or you can't talk about this, you're too young. You know, how else are they going to learn and they're going to express themselves if we don't allow them? And so, you know, he said, at a young age, I never understood racism. He's 15, by the way, because I grew up knowing everyone was the same, no matter the color of their skin. Today, I have friends that are from all ethnicities, going from African American, Egyptian, Pakistani, Caucasian, Afghan descent, and the list goes on and on and on. What I'm trying to get across to you by saying all of this is that we all belong to one race, the human race. This is a 15-year-old telling us this. Let's get it together, people. At the end of the day, the color of our skin is irrelevant in this life. What matters is our good deeds that will help us, inshallah, get us to Jannah. And I think that's really where we need to focus. And that really just touched my heart when I read it this morning, because he doesn't know. I know I posted. I made a post that some children don't see color or don't know what color is the way we see it. That's what I mean. The way we put up these walls and we understand color. Children don't know. They are taught. They are taught racism. They're not brought up. Their fitra is love and compassion, and their fitra is completely where we're at, and we need to get back to that state, inshallah. Any last words, Sister Hadija?
I just think that, especially with this climate, I think that every masjid across, especially in the US, should be having some type of program or some type of event about Black lives, especially in masjids where Black people are not really present or are very low minority, and invite a Black speaker to do it. Don't do it yourself. You use one of the organizations that I mentioned or other organizations. They come out, they do workshop. I mean, you might want to pay them for their work, yes, and their efforts. But they'll come out and talk. Like, it's very important to highlight and to listen to the Black community, because you don't know what we are going through or we face. We know, and we are the best people to speak about it. And not every Black person is going to want to speak about it. They might be private about it. They might say, it's not my, shouldn't have to do this. You need to learn yourself, but then you'll find others that will be willing to speak about it. So you need to do your outreach and your engagement and find them. Talk to your board. And we have some masjids whose boards are very, very racist, whose leadership is very, very racist, whose admin is very, very racist. And I remember I did my post, I had trolls in the post saying, well, this happens to us too, and you're generalizing the whole community. And I'm not, I'm sharing my experiences. My experiences are valid. Don't try to negate them. So I think it's very important that we don't do that either with our Black brothers and sisters. So definitely, if your masjid is not doing anything about this, or your community is not talking about this, maybe you should join the community. not on this plane, but maybe you should definitely get some programs going in there and raise some awareness about it to let your community know what's going on. I mean, they know what's going on. It's in the news, it's everywhere. But talking about it, don't brush it under the rug, act like it's not happening. You need to talk about it and have these conversations. And that's what I would say you guys need to do, especially with your children. Teach your children, again, to be open to everyone, and do not teach them racism. And if they might not learn it from you, you might learn it from people who see who's around you, and be aware of your acquaintances, be aware of who you associate yourself with, because they can have influence on your family, on your children, and yourself as well. So you need to speak up. So those are my last words.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Orenda.
Thank you so much, Sister Khadija, for your perspective here today. And anything, I totally agree. It's like we need to treat people the way we would like to be treated. That's a basic concept you learn as a child, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated. So we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And I think definitely we have some solutions here that are viable and doable. And so we need to be the ones to ask our local mosques to put on these programs so that we can be more aware and we can see what we can do within our community to make that change. And first, like both of you had mentioned, starts at our home, starts within us, with our children, with our family, within our community, and then it's going to make that mass change, right? So any of the references that we mentioned today, we can compile a list and post it in the comments after our episode so that you guys have those references available. And thank you all for tuning in. This was a very controversial subject, but we don't want to make it controversial. We want to fix it. We want to make it better.
No,
And
it's not controversial.
well, it is controversial sometimes when we're talking about it in our community, right?
It shouldn't be.
It should not be. This isn't what our faith teaches. And so starts within.
Well, thank y'all. Thank y'all for inviting me and
Thank you.
having me. I just talked to you about this yesterday, and I wrote my post just something that was coming from my heart and my experiences. I didn't expect to be on any different platforms talking about it, but I think it's important that we definitely let the voices of Black people be heard, because we have been tried to silence us for so long, but we tired of being silent. Many of us aren't silent at all, but more of us need to be. People need to listen to Black people. That's just it. That's just the bottom line. So, so inshallah, hopefully there'll be some changes and some movements. I mean, again, it's been going on for so long. I'm not really super optimistic about it, but we'll see. I think it's like this global, people are coming together globally about what's going on. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Except for those who are trying to cause issues because of their own personal agendas. But I think it's a beautiful thing to see, and inshallah, it can really make an impact on our community. So we'll see.
Inshallah. So you have homework tonight. If you haven't yet, please watch 13th on Netflix. It's on YouTube as well. It's free. And the other movie I want to suggest is Just Mercy. I went to see it with a few activists, and it's very, very profound to understand massive incarceration. So be ready to bring a box of Kleenex, because it really touches the heart to kind of sensitize us and understand a little bit, just a tad, and continue reading. Continue striving, continue pushing. And there's no need to compromise our faith when we're at the rallies. On Friday when we were there, I've been fasting, and we stepped aside and we prayed. And subhanAllah, it's important for us to unite even when we're going out there and taking care of each other. So make sure that you don't go solo. Try to stay connected to a group, and it's just safer. It's better. One of the things, and I'm going to end with this, you don't have to be an activist, or you don't have to get arrested. You don't have to do all that. It's not for everybody, but you have a role to play. And so it's important for us to make sure that on the day of judgment, when we're in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is part of our faith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that when we see, and the Prophet tells us that if we see something, we do something about it, right? And the lowest of faith is to hate it within our heart. So we need to make sure that we're not just standbys, right? That's not a choice anymore. We need to make sure that we stand up. When we say we're standing up and we're allies, what does that really look like for you? So Jazakallah khair, everyone, for being here. Any comments that are in the chat that did not get addressed, we normally go back and address them. Remember, we're on here every Thursday at 11 Central, 12 Eastern time. And I think this conversation will continue on a different scale and different topics. So do stay tuned. The conversation will not end with Sister Khadija, and inshallah, if she allows us, we'll probably bring her back. Mashallah, she has a lot to talk about, even with her organization, Rahma. If you don't know anything about it, please look into it. We will also put her handles on, so you can make sure that you educate yourself on the HIV/AIDS. So inshallah, with that, we want to close, and we want to thank you again. If anything today, please take with yourself that hadith, that whatever you want for yourself, you want for your brothers and sisters. Have a wonderful weekend. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum.